CFMOTO has really started to emerge as the premier value brand in ATVs, and with the direction the market is going, things are really looking up for the Chinese brand. So what's the deal? Are CFMOTO ATVs really that good? Or are people just sick of paying top dollar for the major brands that have barely changed in over a decade? I know a lot of you have been humming about CFMOTO for a few years, and I'm the first to admit that I've remained hesitant about the value-oriented brand. But personal biases aside, as I've mentioned in other videos, we're starting to see more and more of them show up on the trails, and we're hearing from more and more owners in the comments. The reviews right now are what I would consider mixed. Some folks love their CFMOTOs and especially like the money that they've saved and all the features that were included. But we're also hearing about some catastrophic failures, and people who have been completely turned off by the brand. So please, before you leave, let us know what you think in the comments. The elephant in the room here is that CFMOTO is a Chinese brand, and while it's also true that some of the other manufacturers use Chinese parts, there's always going to be some hesitation, from Americans at least, to trust a company from a country that accidentally poisons children's toys with toxic heavy metals. Not to mention some of the, other labor issues. Jingoistic biases aside, there's also the lingering feeling among many enthusiasts, ourselves included, that feel like CFMOTO is yet to establish themselves in the same meaningful way that the major manufacturers have. And their emergence as the go-to value option is more of a testament to the inadequacies of the major manufacturers. I love me some Japanese and North American ATVs, but it has become clear that their tendency is to continuously find new ways to increase prices without making meaningful changes to their ATVs. Manufacturers like to blame flat ATV sales for the lack of interest in the market. But honestly, when the newest ATVs on the market look exactly like the ones we bought 5 years ago, what's the point in upgrading? As ATVs started emerging, the way to gain exposure was either to innovate or win races. And I think it's safe to say that at least most of the manufacturers we're typically used to talking about here got their teeth cut in ATV racing. And all of them contributed in one way, shape, or form to driving the industry forward. For the long-term enthusiasts, our manufacturer preference was often established before we bought our first machines, by seeing the pros shred in the pages of magazines. CFMOTO really hasn't done any of that. They are involved in some European racing, specifically Hunt the Wolf, which does give them some credibility in the European market, but they don't make anything that could compete in GNCC, and those that can afford it in Europe are more often on Can-Ams. But they're increasingly carving out their own little niche in the market. And that's what makes CFMOTO unique, because the primary thing they bring to the market is price point. They're absolutely feasting in an area that the major manufacturers are willfully neglecting. And I think it's only a matter of time before CFMOTO will have fed off the scraps long enough to start taking some more significant bites in the market. Looking at them critically, there are certainly some recall and safety issues that have afflicted the company, but I wouldn't criticize them too hard for that. Every company has recalls, and Polaris is literally the king of the safety recall.
Polaris is recalling about 42,000.
A recall this morning from Polaris.
Reports of several fires and the death of a teenager has prompted Polaris.
A recall to tell you about this morning for Polaris all-terrain vehicles.
A consumer alert, you want to check your garage because Polaris is recalling more than 25,000 all-terrain vehicles.
Another thing we hear a lot from CFMOTO buyers is that they decided to make the purchase because of the 5-year warranty. On the flip side, many owners we've heard from haven't been super happy with the dealer support or the 5-year warranty that's used to instill trust and confidence in people who are on the fence about the brand. In my experience, warranties aren't typically worth the paper they're written on, but they can be helpful in the event of catastrophic failure. Performance-wise, our buddies from Dirt Tracks TV have been testing CFMOTOs for years and have always had pretty positive feedback on their performance. I think it goes without saying that you can find machine-specific tests on Dirt Tracks TV's YouTube channel. As far as the numbers off the spec sheet, it doesn't look like CFMOTOs are going to be breaking any records, and that's really not what they're intended to do. They tend to be down on power compared to similarly sized machines, but the rest of the specs hold their own by comparison. I think CFMOTO has been purposely avoiding direct comparison with larger companies by a combination of some clever marketing and reluctance to build machines that have a lot of direct competition. Smaller displacement ATVs sell considerably better than the larger classes, and CFMOTO competes at all the right displacement sizes with the 400 and 500cc machines. The CFORCE 600 is the little anomaly. The CFORCE 600 is powered by a 580cc single that actually makes less power than Polaris' Sportsman 570. That doesn't matter much to CFMOTO's target demographic though. A quick glance at the machines and the average buyer might think 600 is greater than 570, so that's that. And it really doesn't matter, truth be told, anyway, because the most important number to CFMOTO buyers is on the price tag. The CFORCE 600 may put out 3 to 4 less ponies than a Sportsman 570, but the most similarly appointed Sportsman 570 retails at $9,299, a full $2,500 more than the CFORCE 600. We had a chance recently to take a deep dive into a CFORCE 600 with a dealership, and the fit and finish was more impressive than I had anticipated. There's some evidence of attention to detail with properly appointed hose clamps and fasteners in places that you don't always find them. Polaris. But bolts and hardware were low spec, which is something you have to expect from a value brand. Certain corners just have to be cut to keep the price down. We also expect that that's why many owners recommend checking every bolt you can get a wrench on when you first buy your machine. All in all though, for someone who has no intention of hucking their machine down the worst trail at breakneck speed, the motos really do seem well appointed. There's some attention to detail that we really appreciated, like the raised foot pegs and the quality feeling handguards. So here's where I think CFMOTO currently fits in the market. The small displacement ATVs, the 4 to 500 class, are taking aim at machines like Suzuki's King Quad 400 and the entire class of 450s. They'll certainly get the discerning buyer's interest at that value, but there's also a lot of us out there who have bled yellow, blue, or green our entire lives, and the Japanese OEMs have proven their reliability since the time when they were collectively innovating the market. The CFORCE 600 should have Polaris sweating the future of their 570 sales, but Polaris is so focused on their 35K plus machines that it'll probably take them a while to notice. The bigger CFMOTOs are 2-ups, and I'm not a fan of the 2-up machines because you lose some agility and performance. I think they'll get some sales here and there, but the 800XC and the 1000cc Overland are for long-distance trail riders more than performance enthusiasts. So here's the verdict. In all reality, CFMOTO is a bottom-feeding brand, and I mean that in the least derogatory way possible. In the ATV universe, they're taking advantage of market stagnancy by building slightly lesser quality, slightly lesser performing machines at a far better price point. They're avoiding too much scrutinization over quality by providing a host of features and window dressings that simply add more showroom appeal to their machines. And they're gaining market share because they're focusing on improving their lineups and dealer networks at a time where other manufacturers are content to focus on premium markets. The success CFMOTO has seen so far has less to do with the legitimacy of their machines than it does the inability of major OEMs to continue to improve their products and keep their price points reasonable. If you're using your ATV as a casual work tool for checking pastures or putting around the farm or casual trail riding, I think CFMOTOs are a pretty legitimate option. If you're looking for a machine to hold up long-term to routine abuse, I think you might be better off investing a little more into something with a reputation for reliability. That's the bottom line in my opinion. But I also want to look at who stands to lose the most when CFMOTO keeps on a track of continuous improvement. Right now, I think Polaris has the most to lose with CFMOTO's success. Polaris used to be the brand that people would go to when they were looking to save money versus going with a Japanese machine. Polaris had enough name recognition to compensate for their sometimes questionable quality and high number of recalls. But now Polaris seems firmly drawn to the more premium market. They've opened this door for another brand to emerge, and CFMOTO combined aggressive marketing with equally aggressive price points. Their aggressiveness helped them surpass other brands that were poised for similar moves. Brands like Hinson, Kemco, and Arctic Cat could have had similar pushes, but they haven't been as persistent. Textron is a huge loser here too because they could have absolutely filled the value spot with the Arctic Cat brand, but they failed to do anything meaningful or significant with the lineup. They released the Altera 600, which looks to be shamelessly competing directly with the CFORCE 600, but even the images make it look like it doesn't stack up. Seriously, which one of these machines looks like the value brand? The CFORCE looks like a higher quality machine with better fit and finish, and it's still $1,600 cheaper than the $8,399 starting price on the Altera 600. It sucks to see Arctic Cat fading, but CFMOTO's dealer network is probably superior at this point, and as CFMOTO emerges as a reasonable alternative to major OEMs, Arctic Cats have regressed to being not much more than a store brand. Here's some things I'd like to see from CFMOTO from the enthusiast perspective. The first thing I'd like to see, and something that would help legitimize CFMOTO as a real contender in the ATV market, is to offer the larger displacement ATVs in standard size chassis. Like I mentioned, I'm not a fan of the extended chassis on ATVs. The model that would interest me most right now is the standard chassis CFORCE 600. That's a great selling displacement size, and definitely a market that entices the value-oriented buyer. Another thing I'd like to see CFMOTO do is to build something that could XC race. Can-Am's Renegade is really only rivaled by Can-Am's Outlander in XC racing after Polaris tucked tail and quit building the Scrambler XP1000. It's certainly a risk, because nothing will expose your vulnerabilities like racing, which is exactly what happened to Polaris. But CFMOTO is pretty involved in ATV racing in Europe, especially with Hunt the Wolf. If they built something that could legitimately survive a race, and not necessarily even win, I think that would help both brand exposure and legitimizing CFMOTO's quality claims. Finally, I'd love to see an entry-level sport ATV, like a solid axle 400 to fill that giant gaping hole in the sport quad market. The way the used market is right now, I'm betting CFMOTO could build a 400 class sport ATV and sell it cheaper than what you can get a 15-year-old 400EX for on Marketplace. I doubt we'll see any of those things anytime soon, but what do you think about CFMOTO? Legitimate threat to the big brands, or just the most aggressive of the value brands? Let us know your thoughts and experiences in the comments, and we'll see you next time on Dirt Obsession.